everybody knows that Gen Z is quickly moving towards the extremes. On the left, we have plenty of young women who are so crazy they are throwing soup at Van Gogh paintings, championing abortion at 9 months, and going by the words they, them. And then on the right, we have plenty of young men becoming further and further to the right, even to the point where many of them are not even being welcomed in the mainstream conservative establishment. Many are becoming traditional Catholics and starting to embrace masculinity and fight back against feminism. But what's causing this divide? What does this mean for the future of dating and relationships? Will young men and women even have anything in common? And how will this shape the future of the country? Today, I'm joined by Braeden Sorbo. He is the author of Embracing Masculinity. He is an online influencer who promotes conservative values on his TikTok, where he has almost 2 million followers, and over Instagram and Twitter. Braden's also the son of Kevin Sorbo. He is famous Hollywood actor. So Braden actually grew up in the Hollywood scene, probably surrounded by a bunch of liberal degeneracy, but somehow he came out all right. Braden, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. I hope I came out all right.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, how did you become this traditional Catholic? You grew up in Hollywood, surrounded by, these clowns. What happened?
Well, I was homeschooled, which was definitely a big factor that helped me stay away from, the degeneracy. So I was growing up on sets, traveling around the world. I was very lucky with the life I was given, even at a young age. But I was always surrounded by that foundational truth that's in homeschooling. We did classical conversations. It's a Christian-based homeschooling network, Protestant. And so I was raised non-denominational, maybe evangelical, sort of mix of both. But I was sort of able to avoid everything just because of that. And because of the fact that my dad was one of the first cancel victims of Hollywood, right? He was the first blacklisted celebrity. So because of his conservative Christian views, kind of kicked out. Oh, we can't work with him anymore.
How old were you when that happened?
I was probably 8 or 9, I think. So I was still grew up really young. I remember being on some big movie sets and like seeing all these big actors and all that stuff. And it was super cool. And then, 8 or 9 years old, there was that swap where we switched into the independent film world. And then everything sort of exploded with God's Not Dead, which I think might have been 10 when they filmed.
Wow.
And so I was a year after, going from big movies like with big actors like Danny Trejo, stuff like that, switching to God's Not Dead, which just exploded. And that's what took the movie scene for the independent world to the next level, because up until that point, it didn't really have, much credibility in the movie sphere. But dollar for dollar, it opened in the top 5 grossing movies of all time. $2 million budget, made $140 million worldwide.
Wow.
And so it really kind of proved that anyone can make a movie. And so it exploded from that. But it definitely helped kind of build up the protection that I certainly would have needed. I mean, had I gone to public schools, I probably would have been a completely different person.
Probably would have gotten bullied, to be honest.
I probably would have been the bully.
Oh, you would have been the bully.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I was on track, definitely, because I was public schooled until the end of 2nd grade. And I don't know how much popularity it really matters when you're, 8 years old or whatever, but I certainly was one of the popular kids. I mean, I remember in elementary school, all of the 5th graders knew me by name. Yeah. And that doesn't really happen for 2nd graders. That's not a common thing. And so I was certainly the social butterfly, and that's what led to me being, so well known and liked by all the kids in my class and all the kids in the school. And so I think it certainly would have fed into an ego had I stayed in public school. Yeah. And if I were on that track, probably ended poorly.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And then what led you to start making all this social media content? You started, 2 years ago or so?
So I actually started senior year of high school when I was 18. So 5 years ago was when I first started with sort of politically incorrect comedy, but I stayed mainly out of the political sphere. It wasn't until about 2 years ago that I stepped into talking about current events and doing stuff like that. Even though I'd always been invested in politics, I told myself, well, I'll blow up first. I'll become famous first. And then I'll be like, surprise, everybody, I'm conservative. And
How did that work out for you?
Well, it didn't, because I kept telling myself that, and it was sort of a cop-out, like a get out of jail free card. Like, oh, I can just avoid talking about the things that matter because I'll do it eventually. And it got to a point with the 2016 campaign definitely played a part with just sort of like forming my beliefs. And then the 2020 campaign and then COVID basically pushed me to go, okay, it's time to slowly switch the content up and make this kind of gradual change. And then in 2022-ish, I just hard swapped. Yeah. Not much planning. I just switched content. Yeah.
Did you get a lot of haters at first?
You know, I didn't really, because no one saw my content, because when I did the swap, my algorithm changed. And so all of my views plummeted. I mean, I was attacked massively in 2020 because I told an anti-China joke. And so I'm one of the first people to get banned or shadow banned on TikTok. I went from like 500,000 views every video to less than 20K.
Wow.
For 6 months straight. I was like, that doesn't just happen. My content didn't, like, I didn't even change my content. I was still telling jokes. I was still doing stuff. And it was that change that made me go, okay, whatever. It doesn't really matter what I post. So I started getting a little bit of hate, but nothing near as bad as I've been getting for the past, 3 months.
Why have you been getting hate the past 3 months?
The videos have been receiving more traction. More people have been watching them. And so naturally, just because more people are watching, it doesn't mean it's going to be all people that agree with you. I mean, you would know, you have one video that blows up and it's seen by a lot of people on left and right. And the left are very angry. Like, they really, really, really don't like people. They'll say, I wish you were the next Lake and Riley. Like, you should be like X, Y, and Z. You're going, all right, well.
Pretty evil.
That's kind of crazy, but whatever, do you, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't really get it because I don't really spend my time hating on the left. I just don't really, I'll monitor them, but I don't really care, I guess. So it is weird how they get so vitriolic in the DMs and everything.
They do, and it's more so just because you're posting facts.
Yeah.
Like, it's a fact to say that fecal incontinence is a statistic in certain communities, right? It's a fact to say that certain groups of people are prone to do things more than other groups of people. And yet, all you do is say that, and they go, I hope you die. Like, whoa, okay. Yeah, all right, hold on.
I know. So you have a book behind you, Embrace Masculinity. When did you write that again?
So this just came out this past month. I've been writing it for the past year and a half. So this is before I was Catholic. I was a Protestant while I was writing this book. And then I started, as the book progresses, is when I was progressing into my faith. And so I had to go back and rewrite bits and pieces to add some Catholic undertones.
What's the book about? Like, obviously embracing masculinity, but what do you kind of get into?
So the book is a generalized guide for living in America today. Frankly, living in the world, but it is kind of specialized for American men as well as American women. It's a guide, like a handbook for guys and a tool for discernment for girls, where if the guys in their lives are not checking off the things listed in the books, the thing that I talk about within the chapters, they might not be surrounding themselves with the best people. And so it talks about everything from dating and marriage to pornography to social media itself to the pharmaceutical industry to the housing market to art and objective beauty and reality in this world to the church being effeminized and all of the different topics in between.
Yeah, we've definitely seen just this greater shift with young men kind of embracing masculinity, I guess. I mean, you have people like Andrew Tate. People might say that's more toxic masculinity. But we probably have some more, I guess, wholesome trad guys doing the same sort of thing. But it is becoming increasingly popular. I think we both know why that is, because there's just been a lack of masculinity. So everyone's kind of, all these young guys are kind of craving that and searching for purpose and everything. But now the Democratic Party, I don't know if you've noticed this, but they're trying to win back the young guys because they've completely shut down the Democratic Party. Do you think they're going to be successful with that?
The Democrat Party has been doing this for decades. And so a lot of people go, oh my gosh, where'd all the men go? Why'd the men leave the left? It was because it was a slow erosion of traditional values. I mean, you have dating back to the 60s and the 70s when they started these sitcoms where the dad was a stupid, bumbling idiot. He was replaceable, expendable, just there for a laugh. Kind of this subtle inversion of what Americans knew. And what that did was it destroyed the nuclear family. It led us to believe that fathers were irrelevant and unnecessary in the household. And obviously, people watching this know that that's not the case. Fathers are crucial, if not more crucial than just a mom, right? Like, there are studies that show that if the father is in the house, the children are less likely to commit crime, less likely to be addicted to drugs, less likely to be depressed, better performing in school. Like, all of these things are because the father is prevalent in the household and he is there and he is leading his family like he should be. And so the left has been slowly destroying that over the past couple decades, and boomers and millennials fell for it. They just did, by and large. There's so many people I know that have this idea of, well, the wife's the boss and the old ball and chain and, oh man, happy wife, happy life. And they've completely taken themselves out of the picture. Whereas our generation is going, no, we're in the picture. We should be even more in the picture. And so it's time for us to step up and actually do something about it. So we have this kind of light switch going off in a lot of the Gen Z men. And I mean, we're talking about the statistics. Young men overwhelmingly shifted to the right this past election because the left doesn't relate to them. I mean, I made a video about this on my Instagram just a couple days ago with this whole SAM plan. They're spending $20 million with the Mexican queer obese woman, Olivia Juliana, to try to reach guys, which is insane. Of all the people you could hire, I get it. You don't have masculinity. David Hogg, not so much. You know, Harry Sisson and all those guys.
Yeah.
No, I mean.
They could at least put a man up there. You know what I mean? Like, why are they doing a DEI hire to bring in young men?
Well, they tried Tim Walz and he couldn't do it. His whole thing was, well, look, guys, I'm an American man and I work on my truck and I don't know how to load a shotgun. And that didn't work for anybody because they looked at him. They're like, you put tampons in the boys' room.
Yeah.
No one's relating to you. And so they've lost all the men because the guys are looking at the leading figures of the right and they're going, you know what? They may not have the same morals as me by and large, or they may not have this or they may not have that, but at least they're doing something. At least they're trying. You know, like Trump identifies as Christian. He's a little bit more pro-abortion than Christians should be. And yet he can relate more to the American man than Tim Walz can. And that's why Trump won.
Yeah, and that's because he has this unapologetic masculine energy, which a lot of young guys, or I guess not even young guys, just a lot of men kind of lack. Because like that's kind of what being a man is being so unapologetic that you're not caring what women think of you. And that's, you know, people like Harry Sisson don't really have that quality.
No, they don't. And it's more than just not caring about what women think of you. It's about not caring about what anyone thinks of you. I mean, there's direct studies that are showing the correlation between physical strength and mental fortitude. And so the stronger someone is physically, the more likely they are to think for themselves and have their own opinions. Whether or not those opinions line up with what the world is saying is still up for debate. But the fact of the matter is, if you are physically weak, you become agreeable out of a need for survival. And so a lot of weak men become agreeable. They become controllable. And so all of these guys, my age, all my friends are sitting there going, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something. I'm going to make myself physically a threat so that I can defend myself, so that I can defend my family. And then the added benefit of that is they then become capable of a deeper level of rational thinking, because I can say what I want, knowing that I have a better chance of defending myself because I'm 6'5", 230 pounds. I work out. I train myself so that if I need to protect my family, I would hopefully be able to do that.
Before we get back to the interview, here's a quick message from one of our sponsors. We are witnessing a generational decline in men's testosterone levels due to lifestyle choices, diet, and exposure to environmental toxins. This decline can result in persistent fatigue, diminished strength, reduced libido, mood swings, and an overall loss of vitality, keeping you from feeling like your best self. Take control of your vitality using Man's Edge from Neutronics Labs, the natural solution to support healthy testosterone levels. Man's Edge is more than just a standard booster. It combines powerful ingredients like fenugreek, IGF-1, N02, and more to help you feel your best. Studies show that fenugreek increases testosterone levels by up to 46%. Plus traditional powders and pills, Man's Edge offers up to 98% absorption, ensuring you receive the full benefits of these clinically proven ingredients. Even Frank Stallone has made it part of his daily routine to stay at the top of his game. Join Frank Stallone and thousands of men in rediscovering their vitality daily with Man's Edge. Sign up for our auto-ship program today and save 50% on all your orders. Reclaim your lost youth and energy. Visit the link below or go to ElijahGF1.com. Use code Elijah to save an additional 10% on your first order. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, and we're definitely seeing that a lot of young men right now are trying to be more masculine. But what do you think about women? Because this is what kind of worries me a little bit. It's like, great, young men are becoming more masculine, but it almost feels like young women are still continuing to become more masculine also. And it's like, okay, well, where are the women at?
It's it's going to be a gradual shift for women because there's been so many years of indoctrination that's gone into convincing women to go be boss babes and to go put family second and career first, that it will take longer for them. But if the guys stay on the path, the women will naturally follow. At least that's my prediction, because historically that's what we've seen, right? That's just how God created the genders. And so historically speaking, if the men stay true to what they have as their foundation, the women will follow suit.
But I guess for me, I'm just like, how is that going to work out practically? Because it's kind of easier said than done, but it's like, are we going to tell all these right-wing, traditional, masculine men to just have to like go be treat these young women like they're fixer-uppers, you know what I mean? Go after some liberal feminist girl and just try to change her, you know? Is that what we're going to tell people to do? Or what is really the solution for this?
The solution is to just let it happen naturally, right? You can't fix people. Unfortunately, you can't just go in and be like, well, do this, that, and the other thing. And then they just go, oh, well, problem solved. Why did I think of that? And then they fix it. That's just not how people operate. And so the only way that I see it happening, because you have to think every generation before us was given the guarantee if you go to school, you work hard, you get a degree, you get a good job, you'll find a spouse and you have a family. Congratulations, American dream. You've lived your life. Success. That guarantee is pretty much gone now. It doesn't exist anymore because of how divided we are politically, how much the genders don't like each other, right? How the dating sphere has changed so drastically with the addition of dating apps and pornography being rampant and OnlyFans, and everyone is just on this sexual liberation conquest. What we have effectively left ourselves with is a generation that no longer has the same assurances that the previous generations did. And that's what makes the sacrifice that men need to make that much more important, because we are at the turning point that every great nation has ever reached, that no nation has ever come back from. Now, no nation has been America, and so we can technically change it. Obviously, the exception doesn't change the rule, but there are exceptions to the rule. And so it boils down to this generation of men, the Gen Z men, have to be willing to make the sacrifice, knowing that they might not get the same guarantee that the previous generations did, but also at the same time realizing that because they're willing to make this sacrifice, the next generations will be allotted those same assurances.
Yeah. Hopefully. I have hope for the future. Especially, I'm sure you've been seeing there's been an uptick in Catholicism with young people. I know you recently converted Easter Vigil night. Yep. Same with me, which is crazy. Both of us came from non-denominational backgrounds. What do you think is causing this shift towards Catholicism specifically with Gen Z?
It's a shift to traditionality. Like we want tradition. Inherently, as humans, we want something greater than ourselves. And so the entire problem with the Pride movement and the leftist agenda is it is its own God and it is unsustainable. And so it eats you, it chews you up, and then it spits you out. And people leave it more broken than when they joined. But they're given these assurances of, well, you can be anything. You can have all your heart desires. And obviously we know that the heart is an idol making factory, so it doesn't work. And so a lot of people are looking at it and going, this is insane. There has to be something deeper than this shallow, life of empty platitudes. And they're finding that within the Catholic Church, right? I mean, the Diocese of Los Angeles, for example, had a 34% uptick in catechumens from 2024 to 2025.
Yeah.
And from 2023 to 2024, there was another like 20 or 30%. Like people are coming back because they want that foundation. Because the problem with Protestantism, the problem that I had with it, reason why I left is because I became, like everyone does, my own pope. I was the one who would read the Bible and I would say, well, the Holy Spirit is telling me how to interpret this. God, here's how we're going to have a relationship. But who am I to tell God how to love me best? Where do I get off? What level of pride and ego do I have to come to God and go, you know what? I think that you're doing it wrong. Here's how it should be. You made a mistake. Don't worry. I can fix it.
Yeah.
That is inherently prideful. And so the beauty of the Catholic Church was I didn't have to think about that anymore. Ironically, and it sounds so funny. It's like, oh, I just turn my brain off and don't have to think. But genuinely, these problems have already been solved.
Yeah.
These things have already been discussed.
Yeah, I've had about 2,000 years, so some people have figured it out.
People have died for it.
Yeah.
People don't die for a lie. You know what I mean? Like the early church fathers didn't allow themselves to be tortured for a lie. Right? The major difference between any other religion and Christianity is Christianity doesn't force a conversion. Christianity doesn't guarantee anything in this life. Christianity just says that there is a creator that wants to love you, that you have to be open to. It's fully of your own free will. And so a lot of people miss that part. I mean, it's Pride Month right now. It's also, June is also the, the month of the Sacred Heart of Jesus,
yes.
I think, and Mental Health Awareness Month, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, or Veterans Month or something. There's like 3 different months that it is. And I remember I was on a live stream a little while ago and I was being attacked by some people who were saying, well, if God good, then why bad? That's basically the argument. I remember going, oh my gosh, this is a Reddit argument from 2011 and we really haven't gotten through this. But I sat down and I just had to explain. I was like, look, good in this world and bad in this world does not indicate a lack of a presence of a creator. It actually indicates a bigger presence of a creator, because a lot of people take for granted the free will that they have. And that's the problem with the left. And that's why so many young men are leaving. So
Mm-hmm.
many young women are even slowly kind of distancing themselves, not fully leaving, because indoctrination runs deep. It's very hard to change your mind about something when you've known it to be true for years or even decades. That's why so many boomers struggle with everything going on in America right now, because they can't wrap their head around the fact that these generational kids would vote for Trump or would support X, Y, and Z, right? Because to them, they've known something to be true for 20 years, 30 years. And so for us to come along and go, well, actually you were lied to, is a lot harder for them to accept, which is why it's so much easier for our generation to accept, because we grew up kind of learning it, but it wasn't fully ingrained yet.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about that difference too between the Gen Z and the boomers when it comes to even just the Republican Party. I feel like we're starting to see a bit of a shift, a bit of a divide in the Republican Party right now, because obviously, we opened it up to the big tent, during this past election cycle. But even before that, I mean, this rot in the Republican Party runs so deep. It goes back to the Reagan era, where libertarians kind of infiltrated the movement and essentially made it about benefiting corporations, fighting foreign wars, and that's basically what brought us to where we are today.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've noticed young people are starting to they are becoming more conservative, but they're not really being conservative in the same way. A lot of times they're more isolationist and they're more nationalist, which is a big reason why people like Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's ironically, and even Trump isn't that much of an isolationist. He's sort of a nationalist, but also not even that much. Especially we saw with the whole tariff thing where he just sort of rescinded it. It's like that thing, nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
But a lot of young people want America first, and they're looking at all these politicians taking in, bribes or donations from other countries and big companies and conglomerates and all of these things, corporations. And we're going, okay, this is not America first anymore. You're not putting the needs of your constituents before anyone else. And we're the reason you got elected. So why aren't you? And we're going to see a big shift in this. I'm actually flying out to speak later tomorrow, and I'm speaking to a group of legislators. And I looked at the list. Half of them have dual citizenship and loyalties to other countries.
My gosh.
And they want me to come speak and tell them, well, how do you win the Gen Z vote? And I go, by not having dual citizenship, by not having dual loyalty. When you are not proving that you're America first with your actions, it doesn't matter what you say. And that's the same problem that the left has, right? That's why it's sort of weird that the left and the right have become almost one and the same. I mean, you have the Republican Party taking off a bunch of official stances from its website. Like, well, we don't believe in that or this or whatever anymore. Like, it's fine if you want to do this. Like the big tent theology where it's like everyone can come join. It's like, no, I'm sorry, you don't understand. There is an isolationism that needs to happen. People need to have the assurance of truth. And if you just cave because society tells you to cave, then you never stood for anything to begin with.
Exactly. It's definitely happening which is obviously seems like it's like the biggest topic right now everyone's talking about is U.S. support for Israel. And I found this stat, which kind of shocked me. With ages 65 and older, support for Israel is about 76% among Republican voters. In Gen Z Republican voters, it's 40%. So it's actually a minority. And I don't think the boomers or the establishment I don't think they have really registered that yet.
No, they haven't, and it's going to cost them elections. They have no idea how much this will affect them. Because once again, America first. The thing is, 22 vets a day are committing suicide. We have a homelessness epidemic. Healthcare is over the moon expensive. Life is too pricey. Like a college graduate salary in 1959 was like $11,000. Today, that'd be worth 120 grand. A college graduate today, or I guess, people graduated this year, is averaging $60,000 to $80,000. That's not the same. It's not comparable. And also, in 1959, life was significantly cheaper to live. Houses were less expensive. Food was less expensive. There's more
purchasing power in general.
There was so much more purchasing power. And so this generation is going, what the hell happened? And so unless a politician is explicitly aiming to fix those problems first, they're not going to win the young vote. And that might not be a problem yet, right? Like the boomers they might have enough boomers around for now, but eventually people die off and you need to have the next generation behind you because otherwise you're going to be replaced. I mean, there was another study, I just posted it to my Instagram. The average age to buy a house in the 80s was like 30, 31 years old. The average age to buy a house in 2025 is like 60. People aren't buying houses anymore. I mean, 60% of Americans own houses, but that's because most of the Americans are older than the age of 60 who own houses. Yeah. So it's like it doesn't really count. You're looking at this renter's paradise that we live in, if you want to call it that ironically. And if a politician isn't willing to address that, they're screwed. They're done for.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like anyone is really addressing these issues that young Americans are actually concerned about. It's like constantly, they're just appealing to people ages 65 and older. And it is kind of increasingly disappointing, I would say. Do you think that we have these organizations like TPUSA, right? This is, I would say, the largest political youth organization on the right in the US. I don't think there's really a huge competitor for that at all.
No.
They actually, I would say they did help Trump win the election massively, especially with young Gen Z voters. Just in general, kind of shifting the culture in that direction. But I'm starting to wonder, I was a TPUSA chapter president for 3 years. I founded a chapter at my college, so I know all about the organization. But I was even starting to notice in my chapter, in my friends' chapters and everything, people were starting to feel disillusioned with TPUSA as an organization because they just felt like it was too soft on a lot of these issues. Even like the LGBT issue, people were asking, you know, like, why are we kind of platforming these people like Scott Presler or whatever, like just these homosexuals, and we're kind of we're propping them up as the face of the movement in a way, just because they're like a DEI hire, right? Because we're trying to be like, look, we're inclusive and we're diverse.
We have everyone too.
Yeah. And they even do that with, you know, basically racial hires too, or women. And they always, oh, look at all these like strong women. And I'm sure you saw every year they do the Young Women's Leadership Summit. And I'm sure you saw the lineup for that. What did you think of it?
I think it's really unfortunate that they don't have new speakers. A lot of their events have the same recycled speakers, and it would be great to see, ironically, some diversity in the lineup. Bring new voices in, bring more people in. I mean, especially with the Young Women's Leadership Summit. Ironically, they took that piece of advice that I just said, and they hired a former porn star. Like, I just don't have words. You know, there's the person they hired, it was a big drama controversy on Twitter, Nala Ray, right? Ray? Yeah.
Yes.
Nala Ray, who was one of the top grossing OnlyFans porn stars of all time. And she deleted her stuff 2 years ago, 2023, and got baptized, became Christian. And now she's one of the headliners at the event. This is an event with a bunch of 13, 14, 15-year-old girls who are going to watch women talk about empowerment. It is not the right message to have someone who goes up there and is like, I did all this stuff and I made tens of millions of dollars. And then I quit it all and I said, God, we're homies now. Please take me back. And now I have a good husband and life is good. That is not the right message that these young women need to be hearing. And the problem is, if there was true repentance, if there was true change, there would have been noticeable change. But if you go look at her Instagram, she makes baking videos now. And the baking videos have sexual innuendos.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with that personally, right? I look at that content and I go, 85% of men are watching porn in America today, which is a staggering statistic. That's insane. But people can look at that and go, I know what you're doing with that. You're doing this to a rolling pin, or, you know, like you're licking the spoon and going like rolling your eyes in your head or whatever. That's not a normal cookie. That's not what people do, right?
Yeah.
That is a sexual innuendo, and it feels disingenuous. It seems very much so like a grift in the sense of, well, this content wasn't working as much anymore, so I'm going to switch and get to a new audience. The same thing happened with Amber Rose, the porn star at the RNC. She spoke. She has the slut walk. Why is
well, she spoke at the RNC and did a promo code on her OnlyFans the week of the RNC because more people were going to be watching her.
Yeah, so why is that what we're platforming, right? We're talking about Scott Presler and DEI hires and just bringing people on for the sake of bringing people on. I don't mind people coming on and going, I love the conservative values in the movement. I want to support. But we need to be cautious about who we platform because it does reflect the rest of the party's values, whether they want to or not. And so when you are platforming porn stars, whether active or former, but not fully former, right? Or, you know, homosexual men who are bragging about their sex life, you are not only just giving them a position of power, but you are essentially advocating for that lifestyle. Whether you realize it or not, you are approving it, which is an advocation.
I do think with the whole Nala Ray situation, it really is this kind of weird divide between Catholics and Protestants, because I do think the Catholic view is a lot more like, if you participate in something, a sin that's like that, like a mortal sin that you're just living in and steep that deep in for so long, and it's that horrible and affecting so many other people, kind of supposed to just go into the forest and never show your face again and repent for like years and years, and then maybe come back and maybe not start making money off it. Where Protestants, I noticed when I was growing up, it was really this thing of like, people kind of brag about their old sins. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird testimonial thing, right? It's like, well, I used to do all this stuff, but now I'm good and God saved me. Like, my testimony is I used to be addicted to porn. That is not a bragging right? That's not something that I am proud of by any means. I discovered it when I was 8. And so obviously very addictive, right? So it's been years since I've even looked at something. And that is not also a bragging, right? That is a testimony to the power of God, because no one quits an addiction cold turkey without God, right? So my testimony is, well, I did do this bad thing. And also God took it away, and I was able to be saved through the sacrament of confession, through reconciliation, right? All of those things changed me fundamentally. It wasn't just this, well, I watched porn and it was really bad for me, but I stopped because, I realized God loves me more than that. And you can sit there and go, wow, Braden, that's so powerful. Like, so good.
Well, I just feel like it's this thing where people talk about these horrible sins and all these horrible things they did and everything. And then they're like, and then I switched on a dime and now I'm cleansed of it all and everything. But it feels like it's making light of a situation, because there's still natural effects to these sins that we participate in.
Yep.
You're still traumatized. You're still kind of damaged for a while. And so it does seem to be people like Nala, they're just making light of these situations. And I think a lot of young girls will watch that speech and just think, oh, well, I can go sleep around. I can, dress immodestly. I can post bikini pictures, and then I'll just say a prayer, and then I'm clean and I'm good.
Yeah.
And it's really not a good message, because a lot of people I grew up around heard the same message. So they just kind of thought they could get away with anything and then just repent and they're all good.
Yes, exactly. And so a great example of someone who's a good testimony is Joshua Broome. Used to be one of the top male stars of all time, and now he's a pastor with 3 kids. He is an example of full change, full 180 repentance, a life dedicated to the Lord. But he didn't quit porn and go like, all right, guys, I'm going to go be a pastor now, a year later, right? It was 20 years ago that he was in the industry, and now he's a pastor with kids. Like, there was a very serious change that occurred within him. And there are certainly scars that come from it, just like there are scars that come from any mortal sin that need to be addressed. And so I would use him as an example of, I'm not against platforming people who have done bad things and truly repented, but I am against platforming people who are very, very new to the faith to guide others in the faith. Exactly. It's like the blind leading the blind. And that's what I have a problem with. I shouldn't be going and speaking at, some sort of men's help conference on what it's like to be married. I'm not married. I should be married for at least 5 years before I go speak at a conference like that. You know what I mean? But I can go speak to a conference about addiction, because there has been a healing transformation and a process that occurs in everyone's life where it's like, okay, those mortal sins, because of the sacrament of confession and reconciliation, because of the church, right, has been that genuine reflection and that change, as opposed to this get out of jail free card, use God because you did something bad.
Before we get back to the interview, I want to quickly talk to you guys about Van Man. It's this awesome brand that's free of fluoride and toxic chemicals, completely rejecting big pharma, and focuses more on holistic and natural sources for their products like tallow, honey balm, which beats any other moisturizer I've ever personally used. My skin gets kind of dry over where I live in California, and it's great. It's perfectly fine to put on your face. Doesn't clog up your pores at all. If you guys have issues with dry skin like me and you don't want to use these other companies' products that have these type of chemicals you can't even pronounce, I'd recommend this stuff right here. Van Man's Tallow and Honey Balm, which also uses essential oils. Stuff's amazing. Recently, we got in touch with Van Man because now that our company is in a new city, new studio, new look to the show, all these things, we wanted to start to work with brands that we've tried ourselves and we actually believe in. Van Man is one of those brands, so go to vanman.shop/Elijah and use promo code Elijah, Elijah, to get 10% off. That's vanman.shop/Elijah. I promise when you guys use this stuff, you won't ever go back to using any other type of product on your skin, any other lotion or moisturizer. Plus, they have tons of other products like powder to replace that fluoride toothpaste, sunblock without all the toxic chemicals, and magnesium deodorant. This stuff is the real deal. So again, go to vanman.shop/Elijah and use promo code Elijah, Lijah, to get 10% off. Thanks again to VanMan for sponsoring the show. I mean, there were quite a few speakers at the conference. I'm not really saying they're bad people, but I'm just thinking, are these really the best role models for young women? Because it really is a lot of girl bossing going on. A lot of these women are divorced, or they're in their mid-30s and they've never been married, or they've just been career women their entire life. And I'm like, is this really what young women need right now from the conservative movement? I don't know. I mean, what did you think about, for instance, Nancy Mace being invited to speak? She's a woman who, once again, twice divorced. She promotes feminism proudly, even though she's against transgenderism. I mean, is this what we want?
That's the problem, is if you're positioning yourself to be just a women's conference or just to have women speak, sure, do whatever you want. But if you're positioning yourself to be the conservative leaders, the female conservative leaders, bringing up the next generation of traditional feminine women, then you need traditional feminine speakers, right? So it's the same thing as the Andrew Tate controversy. Everyone's like, well, he's so bad, he's so this, but he's not Christian. So his morality is subjective to himself.
Yeah.
And if you also have a subjective morality, who are you to say that yours is better than his? It's all subjective. You can't tell him that what he's doing is wrong because you don't actually have an objective truth that you hold yourself to. The same thing goes for this event, right? If there was no objective truth, then it doesn't matter. Do whatever you want. But since they're holding themselves to an objective truth, the standard is set higher. And they, unfortunately, I think are dropping the ball without realizing it, because they expanded very, very quickly and they took on a lot of people. And so with that comes not being able to vet everyone to the fullest extent that you might want to. And so things slip through the cracks and bad things can take place. You know, it really boils down to, if you're going to have an event where you're promoting traditional values and virtues for young women, you need to have more than just a bunch of girl bosses who have never been married, or if they have, they're divorced. I think I looked at the docket. There's maybe 3 married women in the whole thing, and they have a panel of 20 speakers. That's not ridiculous. A good statistic. You need wives and mothers who, while raising a family, also might have a career, right? Where it's like they position their family first, and then they prove that you could still do other things by having a career. Like my mom, I'm going to shout out my mom because she's great. She homeschooled 3 kids while having a top 5 radio syndicated radio talk show and putting her acting career aside. So she put all of her acting, her modeling, her life aside to raise her kids. And when we got to a certain age, went back to work, has a radio show, writes books, tours the country speaking on home education. She is a perfect example of, I positioned it myself so that my family came before anything else. And then when my family was raised and I saw that my job was complete, I went back to the workforce and am more successful than ever before. That is something that promotes traditional values and also tells women that it's not a matter of choosing career over family, but choose family first no matter what.
Exactly. I honestly thought, I mean, Brett Cooper, I don't know what you think about this, but I saw her and I was like, she's not a bad, I think she's a fine role model. I mean, she's like, she got married at age 22 and then she gave up most of her career. She just makes like a YouTube video a week from home. I don't know. I think that's perfectly fine. But, you know, and then there's Lila Rose, Ali Stuckey. My personal opinion, I still think they're a little bit career driven because I do know that does take up a lot of their time, even if they do have children. But at least, you know, they have children. It seems like they got married young, whatever. But it is weird. It's like, why are we having when I hear women's leadership, I'm like, this is a little bit of an oxymoron because we are supposed to have, you know, if we're conservatives, we do want men to be the leaders, right?
Yeah, it's weird, right? That a lot of the women at this event are going, well, we want to be led by good men, but they're not positioning themselves to follow.
Yeah.
Like good women.
What about a women's submission conference?
That would be great. And that's the thing. For the people watching, this isn't just knocking the fact that there's a conference for women speaking, right? That's not what we're saying. If there was a conference for men on how to be betas, I would have just as many problems with it as
men's
before.
Submission conference.
Yeah, a men's submission conference. There was a conference about men that was led by men who were not married, who lived lives of degeneracy, and then tried to say, bring back traditional masculinity, I would have a problem. Unfortunately, much of the conservative sphere is this sort of like two-faced, where a lot of them say one thing and then act another way in private, as many people do. I just have a problem with all of it in general. And I wish that there was more authenticity. I think that's the problem, is we lack authenticity because we're so focused on owning the libs and building the movement that we forget that there are people who are genuinely watching. There are people who are actually trying to learn and actually trying to grow. And unfortunately, they get kind of left in the dust because of it.
Exactly. So what do you think in general about this disconnect between Gen Z and not even just, older generations, but kind of just this conservative establishment that we have? What would you like to see primarily from the conservative establishment to actually start winning us back a little bit?
I would love to see more people getting involved in the sense of politicians taking action for America First policies, as well as the boomers getting out of the way. People always ask all these older people, go, Braden, well, how's the best way for the younger generation to get involved? Because you guys just don't care. And I go, we do care. The problem is when we open our mouth, you say, no, stop. You don't know what you're talking about. You're too young. And so for the older crowd, they need to just support us, move out of the way, get behind us, and help push, right? And for the younger crowd, it's a matter of finding and uplifting good things, right? We could sit and talk for hours and hours and hours about Nala Ray and Amber Rose and all the porn stars and all the criminals and all the girl bosses and all that stuff. But what we need to be doing is uplifting women who are exemplifying the virtues that we want to see more mainline in the world. The problem is that doesn't sell, right? Controversy sells. And so they're going to be controversial. That's what people are going to look towards. Because the submissive housewife who's going to, mass with a veil and all that stuff, she's not the center of attention at news. She's putting herself out of the picture. The guy who has a family, who's positioning himself to get to work on time and to get home, to take care of his family, to lead spiritually, he's not going to be on the news. But those are the people that we need to uplift. The traditional family.
100%. Yeah, you're totally right. Controversy sells, and I kind of fall into this a lot too. It's so much easier to just be negative about everything that's going on, but we really should be just promoting the good more. And that's a Catholic virtue too, right?
Oh yeah, it wholeheartedly is. I mean, look, a lot of my content online is what people call rage bait, where you say something that's inherently true, but in a way that offends people so that they're, more likely to comment and boost it and all that stuff. And it does work to a degree. The problem that I found is that when you're being genuine, people just don't care.
It's true.
And so this is what leads to people like me creating the content that I do, is because when I spent 2 years trying to have genuine conversations with people, I learned that they didn't want to have a genuine conversation. They just wanted to tell me to kill myself. That doesn't solve anything. So, okay, great. I'm going to just have fun now with what I post, because that's the direction that people are being pushed. That's why the left is losing all the guys, because they don't actually want to have a talk. They don't want to have these conversations. And so when we look at it from, the virtue of, well, let's try to be less pessimistic. I'm not pessimistic. Right? We say nothing ever happens. And it's true to a degree. Nothing really ever happens, unfortunately. I mean, our government is two sides of the same coin with ridges. And so no one ever, does anything. But there is a reason to be optimistic, right? Even if this life is temporary.
This whole conversation, just the fact that there is this shift in Gen Z, that's a case for optimism.
Exactly. And so even if the shift were pushing the other way, I mean, 1 in 27 Gen Zers is going to be transgender, or at least identify whether or not they do something with like hormone therapy. They're going to think they are for a certain period of time. Wow. It's a crazy statistic, but that means 26 people are pretty good mentally. At least they're better than that. Right. And so we could sit there and we could pray for the person who's struggling with the mental dysphoria, with the gender dysphoria, the mental illness, because that's a terrible thing. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody. That's the thing, is a lot of people think that the right hates them, and the right could do a better job of messaging that they don't. That is a big shift that we could be making as conservatives, is showing, look, we don't hate you as a person. We hate the fact that sin has gripped, has latched itself onto you so hard that it has put you in a mental spiral downward. And that is what we dislike. That is what we want to remedy. We want people to live happy, healthy lives. And if we're too caught up on this whole like, oh, well, I'm just going to say this and own the libs, then we're going to lose, which is what happened, right? That's why 2020 sort of lost. I don't know what I could say here without us getting in trouble on this show. But that is why so many young people shifted in 2024, because the left started doing the exact same thing. And then we split, and now no one's talking anymore. Everyone's just attacking each other. And I sit there and I was like, look, I will make my content. I will make my jokes online, but my content is jokes. And the fact of the matter is the right can take a joke a lot better than the left can, which is why I make jokes about the left. That's what sells.
Very true. Well, I have hope for the future. I totally agree. We need to be love mongers, not hate mongers, even though it's kind of hard to do. But thank you so much for joining me, Braden. Where can people find you?
So people can go to Braeden Sorbo on X, Instagram, and TikTok to find my stuff. If they want to get the book, they can go to sorbostudios.com, sign up for our newsletter and all that stuff. And if they use my last name, Sorbo, at checkout, I'm doing like a 20% discount. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Cool. And if people want to find me, you can go to X or Instagram. It's Sarah C. Stock on both of those platforms. And this is posted on my YouTube channel because I think we're putting it everywhere. Definitely subscribe. If not, head over to Sarah Stock on YouTube, trying to get my subscribers up on there. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching.